Hello, this is Samantha. I'm here to discuss my movie review project. For my movie, I chose Pumpkin. Pumpkin is basically a rom-com. I chose it because obviously it seems really lighthearted and just kind of like it had potential to be super cute. And I mean, honestly, who doesn't like a good rom-com? Some nice actors and actresses in this movie. It is from 2002. So a lot of these actors, this is from like their younger days. Christina Ricci is actually the main character. She plays Caroline. Next character is Hank Harris. His name is Jesse, but he's referred to as Pumpkin throughout the whole movie. Brenda Blethyn, that's the next actress's name. She is Pumpkin's mom. Super overprotective, but super good character. And even Melissa McCarthy's in it, again, in her much younger days. I didn't even recognize her when I saw it, but she plays Carolyn's friend, Cece. So the plot of the movie, really good plot. Basically, our main character, again, it's Carolyn. She's in a sorority house, and all of her sorority sisters, they want to like look the best, be the best sorority on the block. So to kind of get a leg up on the competition, they volunteer to help coach exceptional students, as we would call them, or kids with like handicaps or like disabilities in the challenged games, basically like the Special Olympics. She's really against it, Carolyn, at first. She doesn't want to do it. When she first meets Pumpkin, of course, she's his mentor. When she first meets him, she falls to the ground screaming. She's so afraid. She basically almost quits the whole sorority at one point. But of course, by the end, they end up making a real connection throughout the movie. He's really inspired by her. At the beginning of the movie, he goes from like not talking and being in a wheelchair to standing, and then you never even see his wheelchair again, really, by the end of the movie. So it's kind of sweet. She inspires him to be better, and he inspires her to be a better person. So much of the movie is really just like her running from like who she's turning into and who she really is, as she's like realizing that she's falling for him and she's changing. She's realizing like a lot more about herself and life. And then by the end, of course, she just kind of comes to terms with like who she really is. She doesn't want her old life back anymore, like what she had at the beginning of the movie. She's content with like where she's at, who she is. And she realizes she doesn't really want that life anymore. She wants the new life, and she wants her life with Pumpkin. So obviously, like any good rom-com, spoiler alert, don't listen to this next part if you actually want to watch a movie. But of course, her and Pumpkin do end up together at the end, which is super sweet. As far as the type of disability that Pumpkin had, he was intellectually disabled. I tried looking up to kind of see exactly what he had. It wasn't entirely clear to me. Intellectually disabled is really all I could find, and then I saw a lot of things that said developmentally handicapped, and like that just he was physically impaired. It didn't really say specifically. If I had to guess, I would say maybe some like mild form of like cerebral palsy, because he was in the wheelchair. He was able to stand and eventually walk slowly by himself, though. If I had to guess, that's what I would think it was. As far as like inclusion opportunities, obviously it's about the challenged games, so it's really about including them with all the members of the sorority. He's being included on the college campus and among the sorority girls during his coaching for the challenge games. You can tell though throughout the movie his mom definitely doesn't necessarily push for him to be included in a more normal like everyday setting. You can just see throughout the whole movie she doesn't want him to grow up. She's really hesitant against him really being in that setting, being really in a regular setting with someone that is his age, and she just didn't like him going out with Carolyn, just that regular setting for where he would normally be for his age. She doesn't really like that inclusion. Obviously she comes around to it by the end of the movie, but that's some of the struggle for some of the movie as well. As far as how exceptionality is portrayed through the whole film, I think a lot of the film is really trying to show us that these exceptional students and kids are really capable of a lot more than we think that they are. Obviously, Jessie, or Pumpkin, is our main example of this. But even like throughout the movie, there's 2 other kids that are part of the challenge games that are friends with Pumpkin. They actually take a cab ride with him to the dance towards the end of the movie. But you can see them too during the training, at the beginning of the movie, at the relay race, at the challenge games at the end, and obviously with him at the dance too. They came with him, really that good support for him. But we saw them even improve and kind of come out of their shell more too throughout the movie, so that was kind of cool. Just something else that I noticed. As far as how the other characters in the movie portrayed their feelings towards those that were disabled or had that exceptionality, I would say at the beginning, Carolyn and her sorority sisters, her boyfriend at the time, Kent, they start out acting really nice. They're really down on Carolyn when she says she wants to quit at the beginning and that she feels really uncomfortable with Pumpkin. Everyone came down on her really hard for that, and by the end, obviously they find out she's developing feelings in a relationship with him, and they have like a real connection, and they come down on her super hard then and to say they're not a normal couple. It's almost like they were being fake kind at the beginning, because by the end, when he's actually in a regular setting with them and being treated the way they claimed, you know, he could be treated at the beginning, you know, totally normal, just like everyone else, they're really uncomfortable with that, and they're really hostile towards him and Carolyn and their relationship in general. As far as accuracy goes, I'd say this movie is accurate in a ton of ways. First of all, I think a lot of people are very similar to some of the characters and actors and actresses in the movie, where they do, you know, say obviously they want to be a nice person, and they aren't obviously against exceptional students and children and things like that. But when they're actually put in a new or different situation, you know, where those inclusion opportunities happen and they're around them, it can definitely be a little uncomfortable for them at first, or kind of take some getting used to on their part. And I think, I mean, obviously that's exemplified for our characters in this movie. So I think that that's pretty accurate. As far as accuracy goes for how the exceptional students plural are portrayed, I think that's also very accurate. I think inclusion opportunities, as long as it doesn't you know, stop the child's progress, or they can still learn effectively, I think inclusion opportunities are a super great thing. Even in the movie, I think I said it earlier, at the beginning of the film, Pumpkin goes from being in his wheelchair completely during his first interaction with Carolyn, and he's not standing. Well, he does stand by the very end of it, barely, and barely even, he's just struggling to even say Carolyn's name. By the end of the movie, obviously, flash forward, you know, to the end, he's walking around completely without his wheelchair even present, and he's speaking like full, complete sentences, no hesitation. So really, like, huge improvements on his part. He was very motivated. His mom points that out too throughout the film, that he's more motivated than he's ever been participating in the challenge games, and he felt that drive and that motivation being in that normal setting. And obviously, because it is a rom-com, being with Carolyn really inspired him. So it was really really good. Lots of overall issues throughout the whole movie, obviously. There's Carolyn versus her friends, her sorority sisters, Carolyn versus her initial boyfriend, Kent. Carolyn versus the pressure she has going from her family to obviously forget about Pumpkin. You know, her mom says it's just a phase, etc. So a lot of pressure there. We see the issue where Carolyn obviously isn't allowed to see Pumpkin. That's a really big issue. She's kind of depressed. There's either some sort of like lashing out by her or attempted suicide. She takes a lot of pills and various medicines in one scene, kind of during that like depression. Obviously, we see another like huge issue was really between Pumpkin and his mom. They kind of hint middle of the movie-ish that Pumpkin doesn't have a father, that his mother had lost his father. Sounds kind of like he had passed, unfortunately, which kind of just leads you to believe, obviously, she's a mother. She lost her husband tragically. She's obviously even more protective over Pumpkin, and accompanying that with his overall disability, you know, that just makes it that much harder for her. So there's a lot of conflict between the two of them, especially as he gets closer to Carolyn. You know, there's a scene where there's a couple scenes actually where he gets out of his wheelchair, he's standing, he's on a ladder at the end of the movie in a scene. She always tells him, you know, you shouldn't be standing, get down, etc. So just really protective. They have an argument too once he again starts kind of getting closer to Carolyn, where she calls him a boy, and he argues with her, you know, I'm a man now. So there's definitely a lot of like conflict between the two of them throughout the movie. Yeah, and it causes a lot of lashing out too on his end and more issues. There's like a scene where his mom is passed out with a drink on the living room chair, and he steals her car keys and he tries to drive to see Carolyn. So he's just lashing out. He feels really trapped because he really can't get himself to see her. Obviously that's what he desperately wants, so that's definitely a big issue. But really, you know, another really, I would say probably the biggest issue is just the internal kind of struggle between Carolyn and herself. She gets closer, and as she gets closer to Pumpkin, and he kind of starts like letting her in more, she's just struggling internally, for reasons I mentioned before, you know, obviously. She doesn't want her life to change, and obviously it's really frowned upon for her to continue a relationship with somebody who is exceptional, like Pumpkin. But again, honestly, I know I kind of talked about the overall perceptions overall a lot earlier in this video, by the other students on the college, how they were, you know, perceiving Pumpkin in their relationship as well, how Carolyn's perceptions changed. You know, she went from being really uncomfortable, just negative, and really just wanting nothing to do with, the challenge games, Pumpkin, everything like that, to obviously, you know, her mood changing, complete 360. But anyway, guys, this was a really great film. It was produced once again in 2002 by production company American Zoetrope, but definitely if you're thinking about watching it, I do recommend it. It was really sweet. Definitely enjoyed it.